NC State is 2-0 this year. They had a one-possession, came down to the wire victory over ECU in an emotional game, building off of last year's bowl game and all of that in week 1. Had a 17-0 lead, came back, had to hold on at the end. And then in week 2, in a non-conference game against a conference opponent, they played UVA and found themselves down 10 at half, came back, had a lead at the end, and again, their defense had to hold on by the hair on their chinny chin at the end to win it, and they pulled both off. They won both. They're 2-0. And yesterday we talked about kind of the killer instinct, and maybe it showed a bit more in week 2 than week 1, and maybe one of the big concerns of the early parts is alleviated a bit. But also I want to highlight another thing that Dave Doeren did that we pointed out in the preseason that seems to be like they're now enjoying the fruits of that labor, and that's learning a lesson from last season. Last season, NC State came into the year, and this happens every 3 or 4 years, with just a boatload of hype. And it was mostly due to the highly talked about big-name transfers that they brought in. We're talking Grayson McCall, quarterback. We're talking Noah Rogers, receiver. We're talking Justin Jolie, tight end. We're talking Hollywood Smothers, running back. We're talking Zeke Correll, offensive lineman. Talking Wesley Grimes, wide receiver. We're talking all of these guys. All of them were incoming transfers, some former 5-stars, some top-rated player at their position in the portal, right? And they were all brought in, and that's not even all of them, but the ones we'll mention. And the hype was high. And the season never really came together for them. They ended up 6-7. Injuries and then lack of continuity, and in so many games where it felt like it was going to come down to one decision, it didn't work their way. So at ACC kickoff, we're talking with Dave Doeren, and I asked if there was any lessons learned about bringing in so many new guys, and he said, yeah, we brought too many. I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said we brought in too many because it was kind of easy, right? One guy showed up, and he said, I know this other guy that wants to come, and he knew this other guy, and it was a waterfall, and suddenly they had a whole bunch of talented players, but they didn't have the continuity. So this offseason, many fewer transfers. A lot of the guys that were the big-name transfers last year stuck around, so you now have more continuity. C.J. Bailey got to start the majority of the season last year and then roll right back into being the starter at quarterback this year. So in those moments where you could be rattled, in those moments where you need to know where your teammate's going to be and trust them to be there, they've come up with it. Speaking to the media yesterday, and it is a short week for NC State. They play Wake Forest on Thursday. Dave Doeren talked about loving his team's mentality at halftime against UVA when they were down by 10.
I love how poised the guys were. You know, we went in at halftime, and the players were great. Coaches made really good corrections and adjustments, and the players understood what we needed to do to get that game back on our side, playing our style of football.
And I'm not, it's a 15-second clip. I'm not going to make too much out of it. But I do think calmness, poise in those situations comes from being around guys for a while, trusting them, having seen them in those moments before. Remember, I'm going to relate this to a Panthers conversation we had. At the beginning of the year, the Panthers, I'm going way back preseason, said that the Panthers were going to play in the first preseason game. They'd play in multiple preseason games. And I came on this show and said, look, they learned a lesson. Last year, they didn't play their starters enough, and now they're playing the starters more. And I was excited by that. I was like, maybe they won't start super flat to start the year. And then last year, the starting offense played 12 plays in one drive. This year, they played 18 plays, and they called that enough. And I had to come on here and retract all of that praise and go, never mind, they didn't learn anything. They're still not playing their guys. They're still not getting them the reps. I thought they did. They didn't learn the lesson. And then, of course, they come out game one flat, and it doesn't work. And it's like, well, maybe you should have seen this coming because you did the same thing you did last year. Dave Doeren and NC State did not follow that same path. This year does feel different in those close moments. Not saying the team is more talented, not saying they're going to go win the ACC, but I am saying I'm not sure last year those 2 games end up wins. I'm not sure last year those 2 games end up wins if for the majority they go the same way, right? If you end up, fourth quarter, you need to make sure you don't turn the ball over. You need to make sure your defense bends but doesn't break. You need to make that one play. I'm not sure they would have come up with it last year because they'd still be getting to know each other. They'd still be deciding if they trust each other. This year, it's obvious that they do. It's obvious that their coaching staff learned something. When C.J. Bailey needs a first down, he can go to Joe Lee. He can go to Noah Rogers. He can go to Wesley Grimes. These are guys that he's been with for a while now. And now they're going into a short week, right? I mentioned Thursday night against Wake. Short week. Familiarity helps you so much in a short week, right? There's a little bit of, and especially because I know they're 2 new coordinators, but they were both on staff last year, so they have that reference, right? They have that, hey, remember last year against this team on 3rd down, we did that? Yeah, everybody remembers that. Okay, cool. We're going to do something similar here if they come out in this formation, right? You have that recall. Wake Forest doesn't have any of that. Wake Forest has new coaching staff, bunch of new players. They have to start from scratch. Okay, if they come out, here's why we're going to think to do this. No, this is what I mean by this. There's none of that back history to lean on. They may even have to introduce some new words, some new terminology. Mm-hmm. Dave Doeren, talking to the media yesterday, acknowledged that his team hasn't had a normal prep week this season yet.
We've had a Thursday game coming out of training camp, a long prep getting ready for game 2, now a short prep for game 3. We have no routine. And that's our routine right now. It's different every week, and it's unique. You have less time to prepare as a coach. You have less time to recover as a player. You have less time to practice, less time for everything.
In those unusual moments, I think it's where the continuity needs to be the strongest. Short week, guess what has to happen? There's got to be some players-only meetings because, like, the NCAA limits how much time you're allowed to spend. You have to get the quarterback and the receivers in the meeting room together, and coaches can't say it's mandatory that you're there. Players have to run that. Coaches can hint, and sometimes they do, but players have to run that. The offensive linemen have to get with the quarterback on what protections you want to see when they do this. Which way are we going to slide? All of those things. And I think a lot of that only comes with time. Unless you are, like, to use an NFL example, like Aaron Rodgers shows up in Pittsburgh, he's mostly going like, I'll tell each of you what I want, right? Yeah. Like, he is a coach on the field. It's very different for like a 19 or 20-year-old, right? That's where you need, like, hey, it might take me a little while to recognize it, but once I do, play clock might be down. I'm going to have to, bark out a signal. You got to know what you're doing. It can't be, what'd you say? I need you to run a post like that. That doesn't work like that.
I know. Dave Doeren told us over the summertime how this is the first time in several years that he's had the same starting quarterback from one year to the next. And that's got to help so much. And you and I talked about it as well. Is that Joe Lee, Smothers, Rogers, Grimes, all these guys back. It's just continuity. Again, going into a short week against Wake Forest, they haven't gone through this together, the short week or anything like that. I mean, Ashford's been their quarterback for 2 games. Their head coach has been there for 2 games. That's it. Whereas, again, that level of continuity should – if NC State, I know their history going into Wake Forest on Thursday Night Football hasn't always been the best for them, but if they just can lean on that experience together in terms of game plan, there's no reason why they don't walk out with another win on Thursday. There's no reason why.
I look at college football now with so much money being spent and certain programs spending an absurd amount of money.
Yeah.
Kind of the way we look at March Madness, which is there's going to be teams that just buy talent. And they're going to show up in every offseason. They're going to go get the best transfers, and they're going to go get the best best players sneaker money can buy, right? They're going to go get great teams. And then every year there's going to be in the Final Four, one or two of those teams and one or two or three of these guys know each other. They've played together for 2 or 3 years, right? They might be second-round picks in the NBA rather than lottery picks in the NBA, but they're going to react differently in close games. State, no offense, you're not going to spend like Texas Tech, right? You're not going to spend like Oregon. You're not going to spend like some of these teams with $40, $50 million each year that they can dip into if they need to. But you can have some continuity. So when those, big blue chip prospects are off page a little bit, you are all not only on the same page, but reading from the same paragraph, the same line, and you're skimming along at the same pace. Continuity and stability can be something that evens out, quite frankly, payroll, if you can keep them all without paying them a bunch.